Welcome to Breaking Through the Contradictions. The goal here is to review some of the common contradictions we have lived and have had various conversations about and how it impacts various areas of a child's growth. We invited different parents, business owners, and friends to have a candid conversation on how some of the contradictions we live contribute and or creates larger barriers to supporting our youth. The views and opinions expressed by the guests, speakers, and participants in this context are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the organizers, hosts, or any affiliated individuals or organizations. We encourage open dialogue and diverse perspectives, but the individual viewpoints shared during this discussion are personal and should not be attributed to any collective entity involved. Hello, Emily.
Hi, Tabitha.
How are you today?
I'm okay. I'm excited to be here.
I am excited that you were here as well. I have to say, I was I was excited and surprised. First of all, my friend little Emily, I have been meeting the best Emilys ever. And so when she was like, "You have to meet Emily," I was like, "Okay," but I already know Emily. So when I met you, I was like, "Okay, cool. This is going to be a great conversation. I'm so excited."
Well, thank you for having me.
All right. So tell people a little bit about who you are and what you're about before we begin this conversation, because that is extremely important.
Yes. So my name is Emily Churkin, and I'm known as the Screentime consultant. But not only that, I'm also a parent and a former classroom teacher. I spent 12 years teaching 7th grade, mostly English. I love 7th graders. Not everybody feels that way, but that was my favorite age group. And I currently have a 6th grader and a 10th grader myself. So as a parent, I'm living and breathing the reality of screen time and parenting in the digital age. So I offer classes and coaching and keynotes and workshops and presentations to schools around the topic of parenting and screen time. And my book is coming out January 9th. So I'm excited to spread the word more.
Spread it, sprinkle it everywhere.
Right.
Because and I'm glad you're here, because that is what our conversation is about. Oh, okay, but the buttons are not working on my side. This is always funny. Stop. I keep kicking a button and it kicks me off. Screen time, to do or not to give up the screens.
Yeah.
So breaking through the contradictions is for an opportunity for us to kind of sit down and have a discussion about some of the normal contradictions that we pass to our children, and then how those contradictions impact that child's development.
Yes.
Screen time is top on our list, right?
Yes.
Because the contradiction is very funny here, because I think a lot of people don't realize what they're listening to or what they're doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, we laugh when me and Kristen and Christine laugh. We giggle as I come onto this, because I have a disclaimer at the beginning of this specific live. And the reason why I put it there is because I am an instigator. Lo and behold, I am an instigator. I will smack any beehive that I believe needs to displace some bees, right? So if we need to make a change, I'm going to smack a beehive so that everybody can flurry and figure out how to solve it, right?
Yep.
Another lady used to say, a bee in a butterfly patch.
Ooh.
But I am not that. I'm not that type of instigator.
No, gotcha.
So I'm all about movement. And this is one of those things where I can say I use my personal experience, because I never want people to say, "Oh, well, you don't have those children, or you didn't know what to do here." Mm-hmm. No, I use my personal experience, not because my experience is the only experience that counts, but it's one where I can draw my strength, understanding, and I've been able to learn from that. Mm-hmm. My child is on the spectrum. Mm-hmm. My youngest is on the spectrum. Now he's a young adult now, thank goodness. And I've been, and everything that I wanted for him, as far as him being able to move in life, he is achieving, to a certain degree, right? But in his own time. Mm-hmm. One of the things was, for children on a spectrum, we find themselves, if we lock them into a screen, they're only following the screen, right? Mm-hmm. They don't ever have a chance to come up. So I remember when somebody gave him a personal gaming system. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
this is bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So he was like, I want to play. I want to play. I want to play. Right. And so what I told him, it was just a rule.
Mm-hmm.
You get an hour. That is it. You get an hour a day. You don't get anything more. So when he would get fussy and stuff like that, pick up a book, pick up something else, not the screen. And the reason why was because I had just gotten his speech back when he received that gift.
Yeah.
And with that gift came his ability to cut off the rest of the world. And so share with me and other people who are maybe listening of what this may be, what are the statistics, and what are things that we should be keeping attached or into.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't think it's a secret that we all struggle with screen use, right? That it's very difficult to, as even an adult, to, not lie in bed and doom scroll through social media. Or how many times have we been like, oh, I'll just watch one more episode, and it's like several more go by. So the thing I always like to talk to parents about is like, well, you are an adult, right? We have fully formed brains. When it comes to children, it's not at all the same experience. And so one of the things that I really think is important for parents to understand is that a child's brain is not the same as an adult's brain. And so when we have expectations of children, like, oh, they should just be able to get off when I ask, or like a limit should just be enough. Most parents don't have that realistic experience, right? We are not hearing our kids be like, oh, okay, sure. Yeah, I'll turn off the iPad now. Here you go, right? And the reason for that is because of something called persuasive design, which is the way in which the platforms and apps are built and designed by technology companies. It is designed, and they hire developmental psychologists to do this. They look at what holds our attention. And again, for children, it's not hard. We tap into things like they want to belong, they want to make friends, they want to be good and nice, like things that children grow up being told. And so then when they engage with these platforms, they're made to feel good. They're rewarded. So they get this dopamine rush. It feels good. They're like, oh, I want to keep playing. So when we come up and we're like, time to put that phone away, time to put that game down, like, we are not fighting our children. We are fighting hijacked neural pathways. We are fighting dopamine. And so what I always tell parents is, it is not you versus your child. It is you versus a hijacked neural pathway. And, to your experience, Tabitha, it's like one of the things is, first of all, not all screen time is created the same, which is what makes this so complicated. That's why there's not one answer, one solution. But all children are different too. All children learn in slightly different ways. Their brains operate in different ways. Their temperament affects them. Their siblings affect how they react. So it's really hard to just say like, oh, here's the solution and you'll be good to go. It's so much more complicated than that.
Yeah. So I see that. So here's the thing. Couple ways I'm going to go. Cause look, I've seen it in the stores. I've seen it in schools. I've seen it at home. Right. And holidays are coming around the corner, and people don't like fussy children. I'm just here to tell you, children are doing their jobs, period. They are here to test your nerve, push you to the brink of insanity, and then snatch you back with those little eyes looking at you, looking all weepy and saying, but I love you. While you want to throttle them. That's their job.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
They're whining and they're crying and all that stuff. That's what they're supposed to do. Your answer is not to hand them your phone and your laptop and the computer to get them to stop the noise, because you're shutting off their ability to continue to learn.
Exactly. Now,
what do you tell those parents who need that break?
So here's what I want to say. Holidays might be an exception, because I always say I'm not anti-tech. I'm tech intentional. So to me, using screens when you're on vacation with some cousins and it's only a couple of days, like, maybe that's the area as a parent you can be like, I'm not going to be strict about it. I'm not going to stress out about it. It's just everything's different on a holiday anyway. And that may not be everybody's approach. So that's one thing. The problem I see isn't so much the holiday, handing it over to keep kids quiet. It's two things. One, you're absolutely right. We're displacing an opportunity for kids to sit with discomfort and boredom and learning how to sit at a table with family. Like, that's all important skills they need. But two, I'm more concerned about the everyday habits of that every day our child comes home and is bored, tired, cranky, and our solution is to hand over the screen. One of the things I tell parents all the time is like, again, I don't think absolutism works in anything, right? I mean, you name it, any category, it's never going to really work in a meaningful way. But that's true for screen time. I take sort of a 80-20 approach. Like 80% of the time, we're parenting within the values we have. We're sticking to the limits we have. 20% of the time, we're going to mess up and we're imperfect. And we might hand over a screen on occasion. What I want parents to move away from is making that the default. So that every time we're in the car that we hand over a phone, or every time we're in line at the grocery store, the kids get the device. Like, it should be the opposite. It should be on the occasional opportunity to do that. And I think parents just need to communicate that clearly. So if it's a holiday trip and you're going to be looser about screen rules, you might say, like, when we go to grandma's for holidays this year, it's going to look different how we use screen time. And when we get back, it's going to look different. I think kids need a lot more preparation from what our expectations are. And sometimes we forget to teach them, and that's our job as parents.
Yes. Okay. Parent number 1 is home. Parent number 2 is school. Parent number 3, which is a bonus parent, is the community. I will say this over and over and over again. We have to learn how to co-parent with the other parents in our community, because this is the only way this is going to work. But I'll go back to the point of it being different. So it can be different for the holidays, but unfortunately for me, so there's a couple of things. One is that my family had the pleasant misfortune to join a search for a child that walked out of the house who was on the spectrum. And the reason why it's just a community we belong to, because we are an ASD family. There are going to be other ASD families around us that will say, hey, we're having this problem. So we brought our dog over, and they found the body of the child in the water. Here's the thing. Most people didn't recognize he was missing until it was too late, because we give screen time and then we give it and forget it. That is a problem. I firmly do not believe that we should keep it very consistent for children on the spectrum.
Yes.
If you're going to do an hour a day, you stick it at an hour a day, regardless of the scenario or situation. And you wouldn't put a pot on the stove boiling with the rolling boil and just forget it and say it'll eventually shut itself off, because that doesn't work. So
that's a really good point. And I think, and you are making an important distinction that when I do presentations, one of my own disclaimers is anytime we're talking about a child with some type of a learning difference, neurodiversity, anything, and there's a lot of different categories, right? We could think about being verbal. We could think about kids with diabetes where they might have a medical need for a device. Those are sort of the exceptions. So I'm not a licensed clinician. I do not want to give advice that counters what a professional would say. So, going with what you are taught or told by doctors and mental health and educators about that particular situation is really important. So I definitely want to clarify that. And I'm glad you brought that up, because for some kids, that consistency is absolutely the most important part. And actually for all kids, consistency is key, which is why if we're going to go 80-20, we have to explain to them that it is different from what we are consistently doing. Children, it's okay for children, some children, not all, but life is not always the same. Life is not always predictable. And we actually want to give them some opportunities to practice that. What do I do when the schedule is different? And the way we help kids through that is by explaining it to them ahead of time, telling them what it's going to look like. Maybe some kids need it in writing, here's what the steps are. And, again, each child's going to need something different. But I think that's a very, very good point. I'm glad you brought that up.
Well, then the other thing is that what chaps my behind is the fact that bring your own devices to school. So what the freaking frack happened here? Because help me understand how, first of all, where'd the money go? If you were able to get rid of books and parents are able to send a device to school, what happened to the money associated with books? Black and white pages in between hardback? You know,
Yeah.
I'm
Paper.
trying to figure out that part. I don't understand what happened there. So if we're taking on as parents the ability for you to now send a download or them to log into a system to get their books and things for that class.
Yeah.
One, where'd the money go? And then two, now how does that impact everything else? Because I got these numbers because I went and figured this stuff out, because on the other one, you have children are away from home. I should know these numbers, but I just want to make sure I get them right. So children are away from home a total of, for 180 school days, 1,260 hours per year.
Yep.
Right. And it does not include childcare, right? So with all of that time, so if you think about it, if they're in their phones or in their own devices for at least 5 out of the 7 hours a day, that's 5 hours in screen time for school.
Yes.
And then they turn around and go home, and then mom doesn't have time, dad doesn't have time, and they automatically give them screen time.
Yes.
And let's figure out what screen time includes, because I'm pretty sure that's TV as well as computer as well as phone.
You're so right. And this is another thing that I think parents are increasingly unaware of, is that we used to think that school was kind of the safe, screen-free place, that you could just send your kid there. They might have computer lab, they might have some, classroom computers. That is not the case at all. A lot of the activism I do is around reducing the amount of screen use for school. And that can look like a lot of different things. It might be a one-to-one program where kids are bringing home iPads or computers, one student, one device. It's also things like logging into platforms to turn in homework, look up grades, message teachers. That's one of the problems. The second problem with screens in schools is children bringing personal devices, right? So we know now that about a third of 8th graders have iPhones or smartphones. 8-year-olds.
Yeah.
8-year-olds, a third of them have phones. Even my child last year in elementary school, we got a message from the school that was like, please make sure your kids' devices are turned off during the day. This is a K-5 school, because they were going off in the backpacks. And what parents don't realize is, even if your kid doesn't have one, they're being disrupted by kids who do. If they're going off in backpacks, that is derailing the conversation going on in the classroom. It's distracting to the teacher, it's distracting to the kids. But at the same time, kids are logging into these platforms often for multiple hours a day at school. And yes, as young as elementary school. And so this is a huge problem in my mind. I think there are two parts to it. Get personal devices out of school. The device reward day you mentioned makes me so mad, because there's certainly huge equity issues. There's liability issues. There is so much like privacy to me, it is like, why would you do that as a school? Plus, when we reward children with screen time, we reinforce the message that that is the best thing to have in your life, and that is the wrong message to send. So we've got to stop doing that. We have to talk about getting personal devices out. I think phones away for the day from kindergarten through high school is the right way. There is movement towards that. And I will say that till I'm blue in the face. Do not need devices at school. Kids do better, teachers do better across the board when they're not there. And then the third part is the ed tech. And I have been quite feisty in this area to push back on what I see is really a hijacking of public education by technology companies. And they are charging massive amounts of money for these curriculum and platform use. And one of the most recent statistics is that on average, schools are using 150 platforms per school. That is insane to me. Yeah, there's no way that a school can monitor all of the things that go on that. There's no way they can know, and we know that they're not doing honest things with the data that they're collecting. And so this is one of many issues going on. I think parents have very little awareness of what's being collected about their children by these third-party companies, and the data is being sold for profit. So these, for example, our school is a $5 billion industry. It's in, I think, 90% of schools in the country, in the United States. $5 billion. And meanwhile, we've got budget crises all over the place, and schools are having to, cut back and close because they don't have the money. So something's wrong here if we're siphoning all this. So that's where you get me up on my soapbox.
Come on, get on the soapbox. I'm okay, because it's fine. Hi, Mike. Yes, I did miss you. I'm being honest. I did miss you, Mike. Thank you for showing up. Let me tell you something. I'm with you on this, because first of all, here's the thing. Children are sponges. And unfortunately, if they soak up, or pull in the wrong thing, that will be their foundation for life. So they have a way, they can become addicted to things way sooner and way faster than any adult. And that's what part of this is, right?
Yes.
And I really want to say that this is just not the way to do it.
Yes.
This is not the way to do it. We do not, your children do not deserve this. Now, my kids, I'm gonna tell you what I did. Okay. So when it was time for them to go, they didn't get phones. I do not believe children K through 12 should have phones. And the reason why, it has told us multiple times, the data has told us. So if any parent out there is listening to this and they're like, no, but my kid is different. No, they are not.
Thank you. Not my kid, everybody else's kid, but
my kid. My
Oh, I
kid can
hear
handle it until something drastic goes wrong.
Yes.
How many kids have we heard of? I've heard of one too many children who have taken their lives behind the social media impact, right? The fact that my friend has a phone. Don't you love that? My friend has a phone. Why can't I have a phone? If your friend jumped off a bridge, would you jump too? And I hate it when my mom would say that, right?
Yeah.
But that was their only reflex to that. But it's like that. But I remember seeing a mom who said, I will give you thousands. She bartered with her kid, her youngest one, and said, I will give you these thousands of dollars if you do not open up social media or social media accounts. And he made it all the way through high school. He was healthier. His mental health wasn't impacted. He was thriving in a way that was different. So that screen time that he was it was a trade-off. Yeah. Please be physical. Go out and play with your friends. Go out and hang out. Go out and do those things. Yeah. And you could see a difference. She could see that his friends were sadder. They had a lot more things. They were struggling with a lot more things. Yes. But her child was not. And when you met him, he was happy and smiling. And he was like, social media, okay, social media is just that. We're just supposed to go on there, be social a little bit, and go about our way. And I think that that's what we're missing, is the fact that the screen time. Okay, so you mentioned at the very beginning, Hooked. This book was a good book. But it was a horrible book.
Yes.
It was a horrible book. Because I sat there I was like, this is so gross.
Yeah. It's all about how to hook you.
How to hook you and keep you stuck. So the scrolling that we do every day is meant to benefit the platform, never the person.
Exactly. And so that's the thing that drives me nuts when tech companies like social media platforms, when they say, we just released these new safety features. What I always tell people is go search the headlines, because there's going to be a different story about how something really bad happened and they're trying to get your attention over here. So you ignore the bad stuff they did over here. Yeah. And look, I mean, I appreciate that there is some effort. It's not good enough, in my opinion. And while I say to parents, this is not your fault, but it is your job. Here's the thing. It's a David and Goliath. We are fighting an industry that is so powerful with money and political power and, all of that. It is hard. I am an optimist, however, and I do believe the pendulum is going to swing. I do think during the pandemic, when parents got a lot more glimpse of kind of behind the scenes stuff, what's going on with kids and screens for school, I think there was wait a second, this isn't all good, but they didn't know what to do. And one of the things I talk to parents a lot about is this idea of something that is scary versus something that is dangerous. And too often parents freak out about the scary and then make choices based on that rather than looking at what's truly dangerous. Yeah. And that's in part because we are doom scrolling and clickbait headlines with all kinds of terrible things. So we think the world's scarier than it is. And our anxiety about the world then informs how we parent. And so, parents think if my kid's on an iPad at home, how that's not dangerous. It's better than them walking home alone from school, right? And now there are, I'm sure, exceptions, right? Certain neighborhoods are going to be safer than others. However, it is generally true that it is safer today than any other previous generation, and that children have less independence, less freedom, less opportunity to try out their world. And again, within what is developmentally appropriate. And that's shifted too over the years. And so what happens is then we give these devices in the name of keeping our kids safe. And what is happening in some of these platforms is not something that any child should be subjected to.
Yes. So let's talk about that.
Okay.
Quick. So this is what we're going to do. Because I look, like I said, I am an instigator and I'm okay with it. My thing is that what you described was enslavement. That's what people are not paying attention to. If you look at enslaved groups of people, what happened back in the day, and then even still now in other countries, that type of enslavement is electronics, is technology. We're enslaving ourselves in these situations and our children. So because we think everything is more dangerous now, it is actually more slick now. So remember when the little person, they were buying stuff? I think, I forget which game it was. Was it Roblox or something? Roblox. One of them, they were buying. So there was things that were coming up and the kids were buying. So they were now tapping into the parents' debit card, right?
Yes, exactly.
That was one. Do you remember the one where they were, they had managed to get into a child's game and they were porn and all these other things were showing up, and now the kids are now getting hooked and connected to porn and not normal porn, not porn that we would be like, okay, so whatever you choose to do, I don't really care. Not my business.
No, I get it. You're not like pro porn for kids.
I'm not pro or against whatever, but children watching the type of disturbing porn that I have seen them watching or heard about them watching comes from somebody sliding something into as an ad. So if your alignment with your sponsors, so I would never align with necessarily Budweiser for a keeping your kids safe campaign, right?
Exactly.
Because those value systems should be on the opposite side of each other, right?
And I make a point, actually, and I feel like I am different in my world about this. I do not take money from app developers. I get reached out to all the time. Will you endorse something? Will you tell parents about this product? And I don't, because I don't want to pollute my values about how I see this as another manipulation of the industry on my parenting and my values. And so I think that's such a good point. And I feel like one of the things that parents really don't know, I often say, and this isn't my line, other people have said this before, but don't give your kids access to the internet if you're not ready for them to see pornography. And the reality is, if you're not ready to have that conversation, they are not ready to be unsupervised on YouTube or in Roblox. I mean, the number of grooming and predator type stuff that's going on in children's games and apps now is really, really terrifying. I don't believe in fear mongering either. I don't think that makes us make better choices. I do believe in being informed of risk. And I think that one of the things that parents really think, if it's just an educational game or if it's children's game, that it's safe. It's not. And then the next question I get asked is, well, what about parental controls? And here's, I got some spicy things on this one.
Come on, spice it up, because I'm telling to tell you, them parental controls is trash. They don't exist right. They're not doing what they're still doing. It's horrible. We just tried to do parental restrictions on the internet, and them jokers took it away. What are you doing? You want me to just open the door and let the predators come in and say, hey, we'll pick one of 3 of your children because we want them and we're going to get them anyway. You just literally walk them straight in the door, and then we're just supposed to sit back and be like, oh, it's okay. It's fine. It's
you're
just
right. And it's because parental controls are using technology to solve a problem technology created.
Yep.
And look, again, I know there are some people out there with good intentions to try to make the product better for children, but I fundamentally just don't believe, especially young children, need the device. They may want it, different want versus need, but I don't recommend parental controls because they don't work. If they worked, I would not get asked this question every single day. I would not be writing essays about this. I would not be hearing stories about how my kid found the workaround and my kid Googled how to undo parental controls. Yep. That is what we did this with our parents, where we programmed the VCR for them. And that is the exact same thing is still happening. They are far savvier than we are. So it is, my objection to them is also that it lulls us into a false sense of security, that if we just do that, it's the magic bullet and our kids will be fine. It does not exempt us from the teaching. And so if you use them, I always say this, like, maybe parents have them. And there's all kinds of apps. They're expensive. They're cumbersome. They take a lot of effort to set up, and then they get erased. If you want to do that and that works for you, fine. It still does not exempt you from the modeling and the mentoring that comes as being a parent. And that's where I get really angry about the parental controls, because by themselves, they don't work. And I am not, other people in my field would argue otherwise. They would say, no, you should have them. They're an important tool. I just don't think they're the number one tool. I don't think they're foolproof, and I think they cause more stress. Have you ever heard a kid say, thank you so much for putting parental controls on my phone. Now I have control over everything and I feel better. It's not going to happen.
I'm so appreciative of you for doing this, make me do this extra work just to get to what I want to get to.
Exactly.
So that's exactly what's happening. But one of the things that I did notice, one thing that I wish I would have done when my kids were growing up, that I would welcome and encourage other parents to do.
Yeah.
Change your Wi-Fi password daily. So this is what you do. It's very interesting, because when I seen it, I was like, oh, I was so close, right? But what you do is that in order for them to be able to get online or get the password, they have to take care of their work.
Yes. And every family is going to do it a little differently. But I believe that, again, the most important part here, and the research backs this up, relationships is what's going to matter. Not how much time you've set, not what your rules are. It is, do you have a relationship and do you know what your kids are doing online? That's the antidote to mental health crises later. We know there's a youth mental health crisis in America right now. So we don't want to get there. We have to start here with the relationships and knowing what our kids are doing. And actually, what I love about changing a password or whatever rule it is if it forces your child to ask you something, brilliant. That's a skill, right? They have to say, Mom, I want to do this. Can I, what do I need to do? Is this how do I get the password? And that, it depends on how you parent, what your style is. I don't know. I'm a little reluctant about using it to reward and punish. Some families choose that. I think it front loads the screen time even more when we make it the carrot. If you do this, I'm going to give you more screen time. Yeah. But I do appreciate that forces the conversation, because it's the conversation and the skills that matter.
But the reason why it's not for me, it wasn't a reward and punishment. Yes. What it is that if you think about it, when you go to a restaurant or a hotel, in order for you to get the password, you have to do A, B, and C, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
It's the same thing. So things like this actually start to position children in a way for them to understand that in life, there is a cause and an effect.
Great.
And that's what this is about.
I appreciate that. That's a good way to put it. And I don't think it's bad either to cloak it in the language of, like, as a member of this household, there are responsibilities we have. Yes, and you don't have to say, if you do this, then you get it. It's like, nope, these are the expectations. Then we'll talk about this later. Like, that's a separate thing. And I think that's an important thing for parents to do too. And
John Maxwell didn't pay his kids' allowance or his grandchildren. He was like, I'm not paying you to do what part of what you have to do in a family.
I agree. Yeah.
So this is I wasn't paid to do my chores. I was paid because my mom said, here, we want to give you a little piece of money so that you can so this is part of your financial literacy.
Yes, exactly.
Forward.
Exactly.
Right. But she didn't say,
I agree.
You didn't clean your room, so we take 25 cents away. You didn't do that. That wasn't what that was about. So,
no. And I think one other really important point in all this too is that parents are going to find a lot more success with this if they look at their own screen use first. And that's a very humbling moment for us as adults, because if this is your alarm clock,
nope,
you got a problem, because it's telling your kids it's okay to have devices in the bedroom. Do you want your teenager to have a device in the bedroom? No. Alarm clocks are cheap, and I don't get money from the alarm clock industry to say that, right?
Right.
You're not internet connected. You're going to sleep better. Put it on the other side of your room. Put it out in the hallway if it's you need it to hear something. But like, we have got to start by looking at our adult use of screens, because our kids are not going to change if we're not willing to.
This is true. But my whole entire job is on the screen. So that's why I said I absolutely fail. 12 hours a day, I'm probably sitting in front of a dog on screen.
And my solution for that is live your life out loud. This is a strategy I tell parents all the time. Just say it out loud, living out loud. What I'm doing today, why I'm on the computer, is because this is where my job is. And when I'm turning it off, I'm going to be able to give you my undivided attention, right? Kids don't know. When they see us doing this, they have no idea. Is it work? Is it social media? Are we playing a game? We have to narrate it out loud. And that gives, there's so many benefits to it. It's fun too. When the kids start rolling their eyes is when you know it's working.
Yeah. Okay. So I can do that, because I'm like, I spend all my hours online or on a computer screen. So that's what I have. And I'm not mirroring this because this is fun or whatever like that. I just do it because
this is my job.
This is what I have to do. And this is the place that I chose. But over time, things have just gotten so out of hand. And that's the whole entire point, is that all of this has gotten out of hand. And so children see us out of hand and they believe that's what it's about. So as we round this off, this is what I'm going to say. So one, parent, so me, you can change your password. Choose how you're going to have it for your family. Get rid of no devices in the bedroom. And anybody under, I believe, if you are 8th grade and below, I didn't tell you what I did with my kids. I handed them my flip phone and said, have at it. Text whomever you want. And what I found was that they would delete messages here and there, but I could still have access to stuff. But it was curtailing some of the bad behaviors that the others were encouraging them to do. So this is a way to do that.
Yep, my 6th grader does not have her own phone yet, and the next one she gets, or the one she gets, will be a flip phone or a dumb phone. And I don't even recommend the like kid alternative phones, because those look an awful lot like iPhones. They're still really distracting. A watch is not any different than a phone in that sense. So yeah, old school flip phones, the way to go. You can still get them.
Yep. And I think then that makes sense, because then it becomes a phone and not a lifeline to outside world, where the outside world can come to you as well. So cool. I always made it so that my kids would see, I could see their screens from wherever I was. So do not have, if your child only allows you, parents, pay attention. If your children only allow you to see the back of their device, they're looking at something that would not be okay for you.
Or they're swiping away as you walk up.
Right? I was like, because look, it only takes 2 fingers to remove things off the screen. You only need one if you can do it right. Once they've nailed that down, you are screwed. You will never catch them doing anything that they're not supposed to be doing. But if you are only seeing the back of their screen, they are doing something that they do not want you to see. So always make it possible so you can see their screen. You can look over their shoulder. You can look down the hallway and see them. If you make it so that you do not have access to see what they're visiting, you are actually setting yourself up to have a nightmare of a life. And remember, this is a long time coming. So this is not one of those things where, oh, this will happen. We'll go to therapy, we'll work out the little T, and then we'll move on. No, because some of these families don't get their kids back. They die, they're sold into slavery, whether it's physical or sex. They're done. There are things that are done to kids. And you have to know that we participate in that. It may not be 100% your job, but you are co-parenting in a situation for that child's life. And it is up to you and all of your people around you to figure it out and get a clue. And if you need some help, please reach out to us, because we're always here, because we're part of the community that is here to save your kid, because that's what we're here for. So this has been fun, Emily. I think that we should come back and do this again, because I don't think that we touched on all of those things.
There's a lot more we could go on about.
Cool. So I want you to let me know when you're ready to come back, so we can come back and have a deeper conversation, and probably see you over on Save Our Kids, because I do believe that this is an important conversation, and I would love to be able to get your take on some of the other things we see.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you for having me, Tabitha.
This has been fun. I'm so glad that Emily introduced me to a new Emily. So now I got two bad chicks. I can't. I gotta be careful. I like a feisty chick. I will smack a beehive in a heartbeat. I have no problem with smacking a beehive, and I don't feel bad about it either, because I'm like, parents, we got to get better at it. And the last question is, what I always ask people is, what is the intention of the person that's attempting to sell you whatever they're selling you? For me, my product, my 100% intention is to make sure every child makes it home, period.
Yep.
Money should not be the reason why you can't get there. So that is what I'm aiming. When I look at Sony built their empire, part of it, off of fear. Fear of not knowing where your child's going to be. But if you let them play your Sony console, you'll always know where your child is. And they built a multiple $1 million empire on strictly that line item based off of fear. So people have to be you've got to be mindful and think about, that book was gross, but it actually shined a light on things that you would have never thought of.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate your time. Thank you, everybody, for showing up and hanging out. Mike, come and visit me again. I do miss you, my friend. So we'll see you until next time. Remember, words are power. Remember to use them wisely.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time today. We appreciate the support and look forward to you visiting us again next week. Same time, same place. Until then, words are power. Please remember to use them wisely. If you have an interest in discussing a contradiction or would like to be on our live show, please let us know and send us a direct message.